control the game and the tempo of the game really just set back their opposition. But
it looks like on this camera that my shirt's not ironed, but it's
you want to make sure it. Just let everybody know.
My mum ironed this shirt for me just to make sure.
Oh.
It doesn't look very ironed on screen. I feel really bad now.
Oh.
Sorry, Mum. Your ironing skills are absolutely excellent. I know that you watch. Hi, Mum. Your ironing skills are excellent, but for some reason on camera it just doesn't look as.
You didn't crease it in his bag, don't worry. Well, Thresh is the.
I had it on a coat hanger in the back of my car. Anyway, let's go on the draft.
Let's get into the draft phase. Oh my goodness, Zach is going to be the first ban here for Team Singularity, and Thresh is taken off the board as well by nerdRage.
Yeah, so Zach is still a ban that is consistent on this update. You know, he didn't get many changes and therefore still remains very, very powerful in the jungle. I imagine we'll see even more nerfs to him in the future. But this is a very standard set of bans that has been across both 7.15, 7.16, all of these bans that we have seen come through. Talia actually coming out, and it is not actually about Brad Tech. It is Brad Tech. Okay, it is Brad Tech. Sorry, I read Kakan, and that's actually nerdRage. But yeah, that's interesting because Brad Tech is probably coming on as a full-time member of this Singularity roster now. Yeah,
I mean, showing up in week number 1, it's like, all right, okay. Yeah. Give it a go again, mate. I think that's probably the best move Team Singularity could have made. Got words out eventually. There's the Kale ban to target Kerberos.
I mean, you've got to do it.
It was going to happen.
Because you're not going to first pick it for nerdRage, so no. You've got to do it. You've got to get rid of Kerberos. I think Kakan probably had that Talia targeted against him. The only time we ever really see Talia bans, especially on first rotation, is when people play against Creamel from XL, and I'm guessing it's for Kakan here on nerdRage.
It's a very safe pick as well in the mid lane. Yes. That and Orianna, the two blind pivotal mid laners, definitely something that they want to ban away. That'll be Caitlyn taken off the board as well by Team Singularity, but a first lock in, instantly picking up that Kalista for Sven.
That's very interesting. Kalista prioritized for Sven here on nerdRage. And that speaks volumes to his own dominance with that particular carry to then let Cho'Gath go through, who has been practically pick or ban for most teams on 7.16. Like, Cho'Gath has become this monster that can build tanky yet still one-shot, can be played as an AP carry in the mid lane. Not many people have done that. I think the only person I've seen competitively do that was Creamel on the XL roster, but a lot of people very happy to take him, and tell you who is especially happy to take him is Kerberos in that top lane. Triforce Cho'Gath, anyone remember that?
Please don't remind me. It was absolutely... No, I don't want to call it bad, but it didn't work out so well. Right, Cessit is going to look in his Rek'Sai. Not too much of a surprise in all honesty. And nerdRage have actually picked up Cho'Gath earlier this week in the Masters. The thing is with that Cho'Gath pick, Nucci took it into the jungle, and it did perform well. They did manage to secure a win, but it wasn't as
super impactful.
Yeah, exactly.
Cho'Gath, I think, needs a lot of gold to become relevant with his particular build path right now, and that's why I often think Kerberos gets that prioritized for him. And it does mean that Kerberos, with the Rek'Sai lock-in, has pretty much confirmed that he'll be taking Cho'Gath to the top lane. There is the option that Brad Tech takes it to mid, but it's not something that I've seen him play with confidence before.
I mean, mid lane, the problem is there's so many mages that can just zone him out. He's
exactly.
It's not that he's squishy because he has a lot of regen in his kit in form of his passive, but walking up to the wave isn't something you want to do in mid. It'll be very easy for Brad Tech to counter him out. Tristana is going to be the lock-in here for Team Singularity, and look at nerdRage's front line already. Got a Rakan, they've got a Maokai as well. It's looking pretty nasty.
So they can actually now limit the mid lane pool, making sure that Brad Tech gets at least a good first pick here. The other thing that they can do is take up their support here and guarantee themselves a mid lane counter pick for Brad if that's something that he wants. But I know Brad Tech has a very sort of limited set of champions that he does like to play, so it might be that they want to at least secure one of those. We'll have to see what nerdRage, I was about to say, nerdRage now could take it on themselves to start banning out champions that they know that Brad Tech likes to play, that either forces him to pick one here so they don't get the counter pick, or if he is left to a counter pick, he might be something that he's left less comfortable on. And this is a very interesting way of doing this. And actually, I don't think Team Singularity were better banning a mid laner here. I actually think Team Singularity could have focused their top lane bans, knowing that Cho'Gath has some counters. It depends whether we're going to see Maokai in the jungle or Maokai in the top lane.
I mean, Gnar wouldn't be such a bad ban here at all. Yeah. They actually go opt in with a Kassadin. Kakan kind of not known for his Kassadin, but he is a very good Kassadin player. It's in his wheelhouse for sure. I want to see if nerdRage are actually going to ban the Tom Kench here, because Shift's ability to Abyssal Voyage around the map, which was just
strong.
something else, in all honesty.
Yeah, I think that's very important to potentially take off the map here. I wonder if Tahm Kench would be something that... oh no, they've already picked their support, so there's no way. Taric actually banned. Now, this means that BradTech's unlikely now to lose one of his champions. He's got Syndra still, he's got Victor still, all of which are perfectly pickable for him. So you imagine that Team Singularity just lock in a support that they want, and that could be the Tahm Kench. Okay, he's just going to go for the Syndra.
All right, yeah, okay. Straight locking that in. Oh, he hasn't actually locked it in yet. Sorry, no. Just made the sound and said, oh, there you go. So, yeah, Syndra will be the lock-in here for
I think the sound's ever so slightly delayed.
Oh, that would make sense. There we go. Yeah, so Syndra will be the lock here. So, makes a lot of sense. I mean, Syndra, not the safest mid laner in the world, very little mobility, but as soon as she hits level 3, could be fairly easy. And there's a lot of setup there as well from Sessa. A knock up into a scout of the week is one dead mid laner. It's pretty much GG and game over from that on. Is that? Okay.
Oh, I was going to say.
That scared me so much.
The pick sound came through, and I was about to say, goodness me, is that Garen that's just been locked in? And you're right.
It's not.
Gnar is a very solid top laner into Cho'Gath. We saw Kerberos struggle with the Cho'Gath-Gnar matchup quite heavily in, I think it was 2 weeks ago in the UK Masters tournaments. He really struggled with that top lane matchup. The percentage health-based damage gets through the health that he likes to build, and the range advantage over Cho'Gath can really punish him. So it's a good pickup here for nerdRage. It does mean that Nutri is going to be taking the Maokai into the jungle as well.
Yeah. That is a Vladimir locking in for Kakan. Really doesn't want to die in the mid lane, basically, is what he's saying. I don't want to die, and I'm willing to influence the team fights a little bit harder. I mean, here we go. You look at nerdRage's composition already. Maokai, flank, Nature's Grasp, straight into Artorias, jumping in with a Gnar, and then Hemoplague down from Kakan. Spells Disaster, in all honesty, and there's a lot of protection there from the Kalista as well.
Yeah, this is interesting, this composition from nerdRage, because it looks like it's, especially with the Maokai, you've got huge amount of zone control in team fights, as well as the fact that your siege is going to be fairly good with Maokai's. Maokai's Nature's Grasp always has the potential to set up sieges nicely, and if anyone gets locked up, they're going to be targets for Kalista and Vladimir. The only other thing is that they don't, apart from that, don't really have the best ability to siege towers. The only thing that they do have is that ability to zone out and threaten tower dives, you know, with the Gnar, with the Maokai. Otherwise, you'll be probably limited to split pushing against the Cho'Gath. That's something that you'll be able to use as a win condition for nerdRage here. You know that you're going to have a good side lane matchup versus the Cho'Gath quite consistently. You can then probably stick Vladimir in a side lane. He very much likes to go into a 1-3-1. So nerdRage could actually end up going into a 1-3-1 using both Rakan and Maokai mainly for disengage in the mid lane. I'll have to see where we see Kakan go with this Vladimir, but generally with Vladimir, he does like to transition to a side lane because of his ability to push waves so quickly and his ability to 1v1 nicely.
That's quite worrying as well, because Team Singularity's macro has been on point over the last week. So we'll see if that does come to fruition, and we'll see how they do end up countering that. I mean, what's your prediction coming into this one? Just looking at the matchups. Personally,
just looking at the matchups, I struggle to see, apart from 1-3-1, how nerdRage actually sort of function, but I think Nutri is so good at dominating the early game. I love Singularity. I think they played an amazing macro game. Don't think they're going to have quite the same success without the Jhin here. I think that's, you know, potential mishap. So I think I'm going to go for nerdRage.
All right, okay. I will go with Team Singularity. I'm going to stick to my guns.
Make it spicy.
Make it spicy, yeah. Make it a 1v1 on the desk. But so Team Singularity's macro game is just going to be completely blown out of the water here with a shift to picking up this Tahm Kench last pick. And with Sessa in the jungle and Rek'Sai, that's 2 picks they've already shown that they can perform exceptionally well on.
Absolutely. The one worry that I have for Team Singularity here is they haven't really faced a team yet, I think, that has got a good dominant early game jungler like Nutri. If you are going to want to run 1-3-1, we did see Vladimir with the heal. They usually end up changing their summoners right at the end, and you could maybe see him run with a teleport instead. That's classically what we generally tend to see a Vladimir run with. And Nutri is so good at pressuring the early game that if you get ahead in lane here for nerdRage, you transition to a 1-3-1. I haven't yet seen Singularity be pressured against a good performing early 1-3-1 who can snowball from the laning phase. Because to make a 1-3-1 run effectively, you need to snowball from the early game laning phase, because you want your solo laners to be strong enough that they can jump into the side lanes and push quite consistently.
We'll have to wait and see if they do end up executing that, or Team Singularity can just run away with it. We are jumping straight on to the Rift. nerdRage Rover on the blue, Singularity over on the red. Here we go, first match of the evening as well. These teams are raring to go, and Kakan going, I don't want teleport.
He's gone for Ignite.
Solo lane, Ignite.
But that is quite good in a solo lane matchup, right? Because you can get those kill pressure with the Ignite. So if any time BradTech steps into a side lane to try and 1v1 him, there is always going to be that kill pressure of an Ignite on Kakan. Singularity move through. Another reason that I am worried for Singularity this game is Kerberos has a very tough matchup. It's a very, very tough matchup indeed against the Gnar. And Artorias is pretty proficient on Gnar, so you're expecting him to punish Singularity here, especially punish Kerberos. And one thing I have noticed about Kerberos is when he's behind, he doesn't quite function the same way. He doesn't quite carry as hard as we've seen him do in the past.
It's a really hard matchup for him as well, and then you look at his items. He's actually gone the Doran's Ring with the 2 potions here, not opting for Corruption, even though he might possibly know that he's going to get bullied out early on. Quick
pause here. Wouldn't be a UK esports game without a pause at the start.
Happens.
It happens, my friend.
Happens, my friend. Well, so at least it's the start of the day.
The one thing that I think that Singularity could do, because we've focused a lot on the nerdRage composition here, one thing I think that Singularity could do especially is that they need to really play around their bot lane, who have been so influential. They have got so many good ways to rotate around this Tristana, taking towers so quickly, and Xmati and Shifter has shown that they are very, very capable of consistently rotating and making use of those Tahm Kench ultimates, not only to find people and catch ganks, but to rotate with the team. And that's something that we haven't seen too many Tahm Kench players in the UK scene do effectively. Shifter was one of the first. So I think if Xmati and Shifter can get ahead in the bot lane, they can put pressure on this bot lane matchup from nerdRage, Sven and Prosper. There is a huge win condition that they can look to exploit here.
That win condition will rely heavily on the junglers, as it always seems to do right now in the current meta. I mean, it's very much all about the lethality, but they're real lethality champions on the Rift right now. That's quite surprising in all honesty. That Jhin was available for Singularity to take, but opting for this Tristana, this turret pusher extraordinaire, really does speak to their win condition, what they found in last week. We'll see if it works this time around as well.
It's a tough lane for Tristana to play into early on, especially with Rakan here for Prosper. Great ways at disengaging, you know, Prosper very good at disengaging on this Rakan. Nutrion, not on a sort of jungle that we see a huge amount of in the current meta. Obviously, we've seen a little bit of Maokai jungle. Dan from Wind and Rain played it quite consistently over in the Challenger series, but here's one of the more unique junglers. Caesar already coming to pressure Artorias here.
He's got double buffs. Artorias has got that Excite. There's the flash as well. Kerberos, can he finish off the skill? First blood. There goes the nice stun from Artorias, but gets knocked up, gets taken down. First blood to Kerberos. Nutri doesn't want this fight to end just yet, but almost falls down to Caesar. Oh my goodness, close. That Brace Seeker almost executed him, but first blood over to that Cho'Gath in top. Really speaks to the early game aggression. Really, really nice pathing from Caesar as well to come over the Rift Herald pit or the Baron pit to make that move onto Artorias. Artorias unfortunately went really aggressive with the positioning. He might have been better just trying to flash away instantaneously and then trying to chance his luck that way, but I mean, that was a good gank for Kerberos because it alleviates some of the early pressure, and maybe they can look to punish this Gnar that doesn't have flash now. A Gnar without flash in this matchup can be susceptible to ganks, especially from a Rek'Sai, so that's a good way to start this game off, especially as Kerberos is going to struggle as this went on. You can see him now picking up a Dark Seal and some armor. No potions, though. Hasn't got refillable. You do the cloth armor as well. You do get health back for Cho'Gath by killing minions. Absolutely. So you have natural sustain built into your kit. Yep. I mean, Gnar's even opted for the boots here, knowing that, yeah, if Cessa does come up, at least he's got a bit of mobility, a bit extra mobility. But Kerberos has answered that himself by picking up his own pair of boots here. And Nutri without flash, it's going to be extremely hard for him to walk into a lane without level 6 to make a gank happen, unless there's some extra follow-up CC, which Artorias does have in Mega Gnar, and the only lane right now that does have it for nerdRage will be bottom lane, and that will be the onus will be on Prosper to kind of make that happen. Yeah, but I think the good thing about Maokai is he does make it so that you don't need CC in the lanes to get a gank to happen, right? So you can just walk into the lane, find a twisted advance, get onto somebody, and then just lock them down. And especially in a Kalista lane, that's really important because if you can lock them down, it gives more opportunity to land spears, more opportunity to get the executing rend off, for instance. Does look like Artorias is starting to put pressure here onto Kerberos. Kerberos has got a massive minion wave as Artorias has been struggling to CS because of going back here. So this should be a healthy CS lead going over to Kerberos as Shifter devours up Tristana.
Remember, this is a lane that Tristana will not likely be able to trade too effectively, and you'd need to get an explosive shot onto Kalista and stack it to full to have a good trade in your favor. Kalista is the categorical trading AD carry. You know, if she gets locked into a trade with you, she's more than likely to win just because of the fact that that render is so powerful. But Caesar making his way down.
Teleport. The teleport as well. They're going to jump straight onto Sven. Grand just going to get flash and shifter here. Exhaust on Sven too. Kerberos is going to come through. The silence, the Devourer. Well, not even Devour yet. He hasn't even got the feast, but he just fakes the kill anyway with the Vorpal spikes. 2 kills for this Cho'Gath early on. 2 stacks on the Dark Seal. They know that Altorius doesn't have teleport in the top lane, and that is said and done. nerdRage right now, buckling.
Yeah, a little bit here. Nutri is going to start to put pressure in this top lane tier 1. It's a good move from them, but I agree. I mean, some incredible early game performances here from every member of Singularity. Kerberos really syncing up with Caesar. Caesar has been setting these ganks up. The positioning that he has been using has been getting him into sort of prime areas. I think he's been outperforming Nutri as it stands. Nutri has been locked into farming in the jungle, but in classic Nutri style is trying to get something back at the start of this game and to get quite a bit of decent damage onto this tier 1 tower here, and also allow Artorias to build up again a small CS lead over his opponent. You would want Artorias to continue to punish 1v1 in this matchup though. If he doesn't continue to punish 1v1 in this matchup, it is a matchup that is eliminated a massive win condition for nerdRage, at least at the start of this game.
Ninja Tabo's first item as well for Kerberos really speaks to where he actually wants to sit for the next 5 minutes, and that is up in that lane, farming against Artorias.
Yeah. Especially
when that level 6 comes online as well, those Vorpal spikes will do extra damage, extra % damage per feast stack, 0.5 to be precise, on top of the 4 he already has. Cessa's coming up again though. Once more, this guy just doesn't stop. As soon as he ganks once, you know you're going to gank a couple of times. But Artorias is 6.
Well, we talked about this being the matchup of the junglers. We talked about Caesar versus Nutri, who could impact the early game. I thought that Nutri maybe, especially on a Maokai, who would be able to just kind of walk into a lane and get a route down, might be able to get a lot of early game pressure off, but hasn't yet been able to do so. I'm wondering if this pick is supposed to be more orientated in towards the mid game. One area that's been going well for nerdRage, though, has been Kakan on this Vladimir. He's got a small CS advantage over Brad Tech right now. He's not really struggled against the Syndra, especially post-6. He's picked up Mercury Treads, which is going to allow him to... I think almost sounded like Medic there. He's picked up Mercury Treads, which is going to allow him to, you know, trade more effectively, take less damage, be less vulnerable to the ultimate. That is one area that nerdRage are doing well, but let's, you know, praise Singularity for the early game pressure that they've put out. He has been 2 kills, which has been pretty dominant in terms of, you know, getting some advantages for their laners, but still not resulted in anything major for Singularity right now. They haven't been able to push onto a turret easily.
Well, they're going to try and make something happen here. Nutri is level 6, so he does have the Nature's Grasp. Kakan's coming from the side as well. That blue buff might just end up resetting. Bradtech is going to use the W just to make sure he can maybe secure it. That's going to be a route down onto Cessa. Cessa's in trouble. He's into 2v1, flashes over the wall. And Nature's Grasp finding 2 members of Singularity, but Cessa is alive and well for the moment. Has got that red buff for the sustain. Is going to get found by Artorias. Nice use of the tunnel, but Nutri's going to be here. Actually finds himself towards Kakan, and Kakan says, "Thank you very much for that red buff, sir." Takes that away, and that will be Cessa falling.
That was a really good pincer movement from nerdRage. Made it so that it was very difficult for him to actually escape through any modem. I actually think he could have potentially carried on through that blue side jungle exit towards the mid lane, but decided to try and juke and tunnel back under the wall to make it to a tunnel that went to the river, but like you saw, Kakan was waiting for him on the other side. So Singularity have had some good early presence facilitated by Caesar, but again, it is so difficult if you rest on your laurels to convert ganks into anything meaningful. When you gank a lane, the best outcome scenario is to give that laner that you ganked an advantage so that he can continue to perform in a 1v1 basis without much more need for jungle presence. The issue for, as you can see, for Singularity has been here is that they've got Kerberos ahead, but he's already in a losing matchup that he's going to lose naturally. Even if he got 3 or 4 kills, it's still a matchup that he's going to struggle in through the pure mechanics of how that matchup plays out. It is a ranged percentage health-based carry, dueling up against a carry, a top laner that likes to build health and is melee. So it's very difficult to win that matchup regardless of the stage of the game that you're in.
He's going to be losing this matchup a little bit harder now. He's against Crossfair and Sven, but Kerberos does have the teleport to maybe meet and match Artorias in that bottom lane, as we do see Matty and Shifter rotating towards the top now. Or at least hiding in this brush. There is a ward in front of them. Maybe Shifter's going to try and make a level 6 play, but they are going to get spotted out pretty quickly.
I actually really like when junglers do this, especially to counter a rotation that comes out from an enemy team. Didn't quite work out for Singularity, but a really good way to play a rotation is to counter it by leaving your top laner there, trying to exploit the vision that you already have in that top side of the map, and then look for a 4-man gank onto that bot lane that is rotated up by bringing your jungler and leaving your top lane there, and then capitalizing by taking the turret in return while you've swapped your bot lane to top as well. Didn't quite work out here for Singularity, and has actually allowed Artorias to push up to this turret, meaning that Kerberos is going to lose even more CS, and they're going to lose a bit of damage onto this structure. So maybe Kerberos hung around a little too much in that particular scenario, but it was a good idea, looking to punish Sven and Prosper, but Sven and Prosper were pretty wise to the fact they just backed off.
Oh, here's Caesar. He's going to get spotted out by that control ward. Feels bad for Caesar, but nerdRage Pro, all the wiser. They need to be able to get their flanks covered. They know Caesar can approach wherever necessary and wherever he seems fit, deems suitable. Better way for it, isn't it?
nerdRage, what I really think they wanted to do is be the ones in the driving seat at this point in time, because you have a Tristana. Now, obviously you've got a melee support, so you're not going to have the best siege in the world, but Tristana is very, very good at very rapidly taking turrets. So what they really wanted to do is when Zeal is completed, at least for Matty, they want to be pushing onto turrets, taking them as quickly as they can and starting Tristana to rotate across the map. Now, they've allowed nerdRage to go for this dragon because, again, their bot lane matchup doesn't have pressure. Caesar, though, wise to it and is going to try and be here just to attempt to ward Nutri away.
Yeah, that's exactly what he has done. So extremely important for Singularity not to lose that Mountain Drake. Their composition, not naturally good at taking turrets. You've got a Gnar, yes, which is great, but I mean, Sven not really in comparison to Matty on this Tristana. It's exactly their strengths and weaknesses. And this is one thing that we've seen Singularity do last week, was the early rotation towards the top side and really know their win condition as well and how their lanes do play out against each other. I'm
just wondering whether Kakan is actually going to transition into a side lane. As we see another teleport coming up top here.
Well, it's going to get cancelled, in fact. I think Artorias is going to stop it, and Kerberos is going to have to just escape.
He was taking a lot of damage, and also don't think it was going to result in anything meaningful, so he just ended up cancelling it.
Nutri was topside too, so that really wouldn't have resulted in anything, and he had Nature's Grasp.
I'm actually really interested to see whether we actually see Kakan move to a side lane or not here, or whether he goes full team fight orientated because they have the Maokai. Nature's Grasp into Hemoplague is a really good way of setting up a team fight, and I'm just wondering whether Kakan ends up trying to exploit a 1v1 matchup with BradTech by going a little bit more sort of defensive orientated as he has done with the Mercury Treads, or we are going to see him stay and farm up in a traditional sense and become a team fight monster for nerdRage in combination with Nutri's Nature's Grasp.
That turret in the top lane is taking a lot of damage right now. Sven and Prosper continuing their push and making sure that Matty and Shifter have a little bit more of a hard time. Nutri spent a lot of time now in this top side to take his Gromp, and now he's actually moving towards his Rift Herald as well. Will they be able to take this? Sessa coming from over the wall. Does get a flash knock up on Kakan. Red buff, Hemoplague as well. Is going to get Kakan a massive heal, and that does end up popping. Void Rush actually onto Kakan. Leaps forward, but again, humongous heal. Does come out, and that will stop Singularity to advances. BradTech had no mana in that scenario, so wasn't really being able to do anything whatsoever.
Yeah, didn't even have enough mana for a ultimate, so it would have been very difficult to get the kill. And Nutri has just straight up soloed the Rift Herald here. And all because Caesar really hard committed to a gank is going to give nerdRage the opportunity now to finally crack that turret line, which has not yet fallen. Nobody has got significant enough damage to take. Oh wait, yes it has. They've taken the top lane turret. What am I talking about? So nerdRage taking the first turret of the game and now have the opportunity to use this Rift Herald in either the mid lane or the bot lane. You would imagine both turrets are prime targets right now. And with Kakan able to push the minion wave in so readily, you'd expect them to potentially use that in mid.
Yeah, it's starting to get really hard for BradTech to actually clear these waves now. He does have Lost Chapter, but the further and further you get in the game means very little. So picking up that Morella Nomicon was his prime priority. And actually Sessa now trading his objectives, or at least trying to. Prospect is going to ward it out, but Control Ward will stop that from happening.
Oh, he's going to back off as well.
Yeah, 2000 HP, doesn't really want to take the fight, knowing that Sven and Prospect are around.
Yeah, it was a good reaction from nerdRage. They knew that that was potentially on the cards, and Prospect gets a ward down, and the ward is enough to back Seza out here. Morella Nomicon, obviously a great pickup for Syndra, but in this matchup even better because of the mortal wounds that it applies, or grievous wounds that it applies. Reduced that Vladimir's healing. It's like a double whammy for Syndra in this particular matchup.
You have to get him below 40% HP though.
Yeah.
That's
well,
the only problem
not too hard for Syndra to achieve that.
No, not all too hard, especially when you've got a couple of orbs on the field and you press your ultimate, hit that R, and then reduce a lot of the healing coming out from Kakan. And now, we're in this mid-game stage, or just before the mid-game. We're 15 minutes in. nerdRage have taken a turret up on that top side. The goal lead is merely 400 in favour of... No, after the turret, it's a little bit more than that, 1,200. But nerdRage looking at this game, and we're saying...
Wait, where do you do maths? That's about 700.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, all right.
Actually wondering where Nutri's going to go. Oh, big engage into the bot lane. Prospect is going to be forcing Matty away. I'm just wondering whether they've been relying, I think, on the dominant matchup of Sven and Prospect here to get a large amount of turret damage down. I'm wondering whether Nutri looks to play around that, or he just straight up releases it in the mid lane off the back of a Kakan push, and then they get a turret from that aspect. I think both bot and mid will yield a turret if you release the Rift Herald. It just depends where nerdRage want the pressure. By getting rid of the mid lane turret, they can then open up the jungle to start getting some vision down, can look to make picks. It does look it's going to be mid lane, so they are going to go off the back of a push and try and go for a mid lane siege here.
They have unleashed Harriet, the Void Monster. Oh, hang on a second though. Fight the bottom lane. Matty's going to get exhausted. Same with Sven. That's going to be a stun as well from Shifter. It's going to be able to stun him up, and Matty will finish him off with just a basic attack. Nature's Grasp is actually going to find the kill onto Bradtech here. Artorias went fairly low. That turret is going to fall. Sessa not late on this rotation, was here earlier, just couldn't make anything happen. Wants to find the kill on Artorias. Preyseeker doesn't land. Artorias jumping away. Nice route, nice kill. Nutri finds his revenge onto Sessa. They take mid-tier 1. They take 2 kills as well. And we'll see what they want to do. Does it like, yep, Maddie and Shifter backing off very sharpish now.
And this should be easy, either a free Drake and potentially a free siege onto the bot lane tier 1 here. I missed what happened in the mid lane. It looks like they went for a gank onto Kakan. He used his Hemoplague again, got a huge amount of damage on, and still escaped from that Syndra ultimate. And then Nutri and Artorias were able to capitalize, and Artorias actually rotated down, didn't even bother using his teleport, and must have gone for, didn't even use his ultimate, so must have just came in and dealt a huge amount of damage off the back of Kakan's ultimate, which looks like it resulted in a really good situation for nerdRage, and they picked up that mid lane tier 1. Bot lane matchup that you saw though, I think there must have been something. I think basically what it looked like was Shifter was the one that was tanking all of the spears, which meant that the Rend was not going onto the target that they wanted to land it on, which is Matty, and Matty managed to get a fully stacked explosive shot onto Sven. And continuously, the body blocking of Shifter, obviously you can't body block basic attacks, but him being in front of Kalista meant that it's difficult to kite backwards because you almost feel like you have to attack Shifter, and you know Shifter's got the shield, which is going to allow him to soak up Rend damage as well.
Yeah, Shifter's definitely the one you want to fill with spears. He's got grey health, so he just goes, okay, I'm a little bit low, pop the grey health, you rend me, that's none of my HP gone whatsoever. Shifter, again, being this catalyst to a lot of these macro game plays that we saw in the last week's game. But right now, you're looking at the field and you're going, okay, so what have nerdRage actually got? They've got 2 turrets, they've got a dragon. What have Singularity got? They've got no dragons, they've got no turrets. They've got no, they haven't even got a CS lead. I was going to say Kerberos into Artorias, which is 1 CS a piece, but it's nothing.
It should be
nothing.
more. That should be more, really, you think, for Artorias. But I think because of the lane swaps coming out, they haven't really had too much of a 1v1 scenario in that top lane. With the Black Cleaver coming out, that should be enough to put pressure onto Artorias, but you can see Kerberos has gone for the Righteous Glory. We've got another gank. This is better.
Wow, nice battle dance. Straight on to Sven as well. Teleport is going to come through, actually. Nature's Grasp is going to meet a couple of members of Singularity. They are going to get rooted up, but Kerberos is here down in the bottom side. Righteous Glory has been popped. He devours. Prospect finds the kill, does sacrifice his own life for it, though. Sven running his life away. Artorias did match the teleport of Kerberos. Wasn't actually Meganar, so couldn't make anything of it. And now Kakan is pressuring this turret as well. think Singularity here, they are just going to have to give this one up. And that will be a third turret going over to nerdRage. All tier 1s down now for Singularity.
The tower dive potential from nerdRage is too strong for Singularity to ignore that. I do like what Shifter has been doing. Matty has been sort of soaking spears at the start, and then Shifter just devours Matty. And unfortunately makes it difficult for Sven to then capitalize and look for an execute. A great rotation from Singularity does mean they push in that mid lane, but they don't quite have enough time to take the tier 1 down here. Despite having 3 turrets to 0, it's a very minor gold lead you feel here for nerdRage. Everything's still so on edge and on balance. Going towards a Trinity Force for Kerberos, like we saw previously for him on Cho'Gath here. He's got the Righteous Glory to charge Artorias down. Still don't feel like he should be very easily able to take Artorias in a 1v1. I think Artorias would be making a huge mistake if he died to Kerberos, but obviously we'll always have to respect the fact that Kerberos can find those engages, and the Trinity Force will give him some movement speed and trading potential.
So look at this replay here. Nature's Grass just chewing up so many members of Singularity.
Yeah, it bought so much time to set up for Artorias and Sven. Nature's Grasp is something you have to respect as an ability, as the kind of zone control that it provides. You could see the way that the Singularity immediately reacted to the push of the Nature's Grasp. They were trying to chase down Prosper, but because of the movement speed of this Rakan, they weren't able to get the feast onto him as quickly as they would have wanted. The Nature's Grasp kind of kept everything static for a moment, allowing nerdRage to then group up and focus Kerberos and push Singularity away, because their immediate response to Nature's Grasp is to run away from it. Because you feel like you don't want to get rooted up by it. But by doing that, they basically isolated Kerberos and made it very easy for nerdRage to just finish him off and then charge them down, as they had already made a retreat just because of that Nature's Grasp.
And Kerberos, we said in the pick and ban phase, was the one that was going to struggle realistically. Trying to find the kill on Artorias though. Righteous Glory has been popped, does have Feast available to him as well. Might just go for the execute here, almost finishes him off with it, but ends up with that feral scream. Artorias' eardrums are blown. He actually goes down here. Now Kerberos actually getting the preferential treatment in that bottom lane. They will be able to push this in, and they are still 3 turrets to 0, but nerdRage, they need to start making more proactive plays.
I mean, there is that things where Artorias, you know, he is going to struggle to deal with Kerberos if Kerberos does land those basic attacks on him, because you've got the Phage, right? So you're going to get the increased movement speed every time you land the basic attack. So you pop Righteous Glory, you run at Artorias, and you just get basic attacks on him, and you can often keep up with him because of that Phage.
Voyage to the top side. Kakan might be in a little bit of trouble. He's trying to find the kill on Matty. Does use the pool instantly, and flash over the wall as well. Sven's here. Oh, hang on a second. That face cool, landing over the wall. Nature's Grass, here we go. This is what we wanted to see. Matty gets locked up, so does Shifter. Sessa does not, because he was in the belly of Shifter in the end. And that will just allow a lot of time, and Kerberos is actually just taking that tier 1 in that bottom side. nerdRage popping a lot of ults there, just didn't make anything of it.
So, one of the win conditions for nerdRage, I think, was having Artorias consistently pressure Kerberos in this side lane on the Cho'Gath. That doesn't feel like it's going quite to plan for nerdRage here. In fact, actually now Cho'Gath has got a CS advantage against the Gnar. A lot of this was set up from Caesar early on. Kerberos built himself a healthy lead by finding these ganks across the map, and 4 out of the 5 kills on the Singularity roster are Kerberos on this Cho'Gath. Now that the Trinity Force is finished, you might feel that actually he might do well into Artorias. If he can consistently rush at him with Feast every single time that it's up with the Righteous Glory.
Prosper's being collapsed on. Over the wall comes Sessa. Nice battle dance away onto Sven, though. There was a Void Rush actually on to Prosper. Here comes the Righteous Glory from Nutri. They're going to find Kerberos once again. He's going to be full of spears, but Shifter's going to devour him. Are they going to be able to get out alive? There comes the battle dance. Massive quickness as well onto 2 members of Singularity. And that'll be Bradtech taking out Prosper. Hemo Plague onto a couple as well. And it does like they are just going to run them down. That Hemo Plague just killed 2 people at once. Sessa and Matty just died off screen to Kakan. That's the power of mid-game Vladimir without Leandries and Protobelt. There we go. Huma Play kills 2, and that'll be 3 members going down there for Singularity.
And in a lot of ways, this composition is built to deal with Kerberos and teamfights as well. Leandries coming out. Blade of the Ruin King, obviously classic for Kalista, but very good into Cho'Gath regardless, because you're going to get that percentage health-based damage. You're going to damage him more and more than a regular AD carry could potentially do so. Artorias is going to teleport to Dragon to try and ward them off the Infernal Drake, and they're going to get the Baron.
That is absolutely huge. Bradtech and Shifter are trying to take that away, and they probably could have done it, but Artorias committing the teleport saved themselves an Infernal Drake, and now they got Baron.
We asked whether Kakan would be taking a side lane role here. Let's take a look at that again, by the way. Again, it's how powerful Nature's Grasp is as a team fight tool, and the combo that you get with it between that and Vladimir. Got massive credit to Prosper for setting this up as well, because he got a big knock up into a quickness, which allowed for this massive Hemo Plague to come down. But I mean, we were asking the question whether this Vladimir would be split push or team fight. Looks like it's very much team fight here for nerdRage. And he is doing an excellent job so far. Has had a very easy time versus bradtech on this Syndra. And it's scaled up quite nicely and quite quickly too.
Well, they want to fight in corridors. That's exactly where Kakan does a lot of work, exactly where newtri does a lot of work as well. And Artorias, if he's in Meganar form.
If you're talking about corridors and Maokai, the lane is a corridor to Maokai.
That is true.
Because of how wide that Nature's Grasp is.
Yeah, that Nature's Grasp is pretty thick. Now, nerdRage, they're getting those dragons up. Well, it was an easy one, come on.
Is it thick?
Is it? Yeah, thick. 2 C's. nerdRage, they've got the Baron buff, they've got 2 dragons. Now, Singularity's early game prowess that we praise them for just really hasn't come into effect. Kerberos popping the Righteous Glory after the pop-up there on Artorias. Hang on a second, they're taking a lot of damage. Doesn't get knocked up again. That excitement is going to lead him out there nice and safely, you can imagine, with newtri meeting him. And now Sven and Prosper will just siege up mid, take that one handily. Abyssal Voyage burn here just, again, allowed nerdRage a lot of time to maneuver across this map.
So when previously Singularity were essentially using it to get rotations on objectives, a lot of what I have seen from Shifter and his Abyssal Voyage this game has to be either, you know, capitalize on a gank or try and pick up kills. And while kills are good, kills need to net you something on the map. And Kerberos getting a kill there on Artorias would have been nice, but they let their mid lane tier 2 go for free because of it. And they also let Kakan, I think, push up onto this bot lane tier 2 as well. I think he even took it. So they let 2 turrets go down to try and secure a kill for Kerberos. And obviously that's a kill that was probably going to happen had Flash not come out for Artorias because he got hit by the Rupture, but you can't let that go for Singularity. Singularity did so well because they were a macro-focused team. They didn't get dragged down trying to pick off kills, and if they did, they were picking up kills for a reason. That Abyssal Voyage for Kerberos onto Artorias wasn't really for a reason other than to get Kerberos a kill. There was nothing they could have really gained from it because of the way that the map was.
He is 4-2-1 now. He's got that Trinity Force, which we kind of debated was a good item or not. Kerberos actually is going to find Kakan. Ignited and Hemo Plague is going to back off because he knows Kakan's health bar will be momentarily refilled. Now that top tier 2 is going down as well.
We are seeing the split push open up here. Kakan has moved into his side lane. He's got the ability to do that on a Vladimir. Maybe he's playing a bit of both. We talked about him being a team fighter. We talked about him being a split pusher. He is functioning both roles in this game on Vladimir. Working towards is going to be his Zhonya's, and Singularity are now just kind of pressed in every area and unable to respond very easily. Kakan gonna flash.
Glory is going to flash. The knock-up does land. newtri's going to come from the side with the Nature's Grasp, but meanwhile in the top side, hang on a second here, Sven just 1v2ing. bradtech is full of spears. He's just going to run him down, rend him for a lot of damage. Doesn't quite find the kill with the red buff, but Matty is going to fall to Artorias. Now newtri and Artorias chasing up. Shifter is going to devour Kerberos, get him out nice and safely, but that is going to be an exhaust landing on to Shifter. He's going to get rooted, stunned up for days. Nice silence from Kerberos. Might actually land Shifter with his life here. Knock-up as well is going to get avoided. Shifter does get out alive, but still, Sven 2v1ing top side, takes the turret, looking for the inhibitor now.
And had the Hex Drinker, so made it very safe for him to go into bradtech there. bradtech, unfortunately, unable to respond as his ultimate had previously been used, and Prosper and Sven are going to pick up a inhibitor now, as he goes very aggressive and locks up Kerberos for a short amount of time.
Righteous Glory isn't on cooldown. Sven just trying desperately to get away. Flash knockout from Sessa. There's the feast, there's the auto. Sessa picks up the kill. He gets the shutdown. They're going to look for Prosper as well. The knockup comes through as well as the Void Rush. Kerberos finishes those off with the Vorpal Spikes.
It's kills for the sake of kills now for Singularity as they lose another inhibitor. 2 inhibitors down for this team. nerdRage have just been able to out-pressure them on the map. They pick lanes that seem to have those winning shoves. Both Artorias, or even Artorias, Kakan, Sven and Prosper all had lanes that are consistently shoved into Singularity. And Singularity had such a storming start to the game, but they weren't really able to capitalize on those advantages. If you gank heavy in the early game, you're looking to get... Okay, there's 2 reasons you gank. To alleviate a bad matchup for one of your players, or to get a matchup ahead so that they can continue to generate pressure on the map. So you have a decision as Cesar in the early game. You alleviate Kerberos on this Cho'Gath versus Gnar matchup, which, despite Kerberos getting solo kills, it's never resulted in him able to consistently push Artorias in a 1v1 scenario, especially now that the Frozen Mallet has been completed for Artorias. it just means it's even more difficult to chase him down, even with the Righteous Glory. So that was never a matchup that you think Kerberos is going to dominate in. Yes, he probably gets a couple of kills here and there, but he's never going to dominate the matchup.
It makes you wonder as well, if those 6 kills are on someone else, like Matty, like BradTech even, you've given a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of pressure to Kerberos to get it out in this Cho'Gath. He's finding the kills just off turret takes, and like you mentioned, hang on a second, an engagement does happen here. Fate's call actually to drag Prosper out of danger. Now Sven, what is he going to do with him? Just throws him to the side instead.
We are seeing the 1-3-1 open up here now for nerdRage. It's something that I thought would happen, but they delayed it because they were doing so well as a unit. Another thing in the early game, I talked about how important I think Matty was to this composition. I think Matty on this Tristana was a very important facet for how Singularity executed on their sort of turret rotations. You know, Tristana is notably very good at just shoving turrets. It's kind of what she does, right? They didn't put enough, I don't think they put enough time into sort of solidifying Matty's early game. If they got Matty ahead, got him to the Energizer build a bit quicker, they might have been able to push Sven and Prosper in, because I think one of the major reasons that we saw Singularity lose pressure on this game is that Sven and Prosper, despite being put behind, were consistently winning the 2v2 versus Matty and Shifter. It's hard for a Tahm Kench to beat a double ranged in the bot lane, but they were consistently, realistically, in sort of the global stretch of the game, losing in terms of shove, losing in terms of trades for the most part. And I think Nutri knew that, and Nutri did put some pressure down for his bot lane, resulting in them picking up, you know, this advantage that they've got now.
Nutri hasn't been that shining star, that pressure, that powerhouse in the beginning of the game, and now he's being in the late. Nature's Grass is going to provide them a lot of space now. That's actually a massive ultimate from Artorias, and there's the quickness, there's the knockups, there's the damage. Kukan's on the back line, he will make onto 2 people, does get exhausted, so it's not going to do as much damage. And now he's in a 1v4. Kerberos has already fallen in this fight. BradTech was to follow as well. Sessa gets knocked up for absolute days, and now Matty, Shifter, they're in the base. They're trying to get a bit of healing, but I think that's going to be it. That will be nerdRage taking the game from Singularity and what seemed to be a beautiful 1-3-1 composition.
And they didn't even execute it fully as a 1-3-1 here, Jaws, as they are just finishing off the Nexus. They didn't even execute it fully as a 1-3-1. Yes, towards the end of the game, they got that pressure generated because of it, but they were straight up beating Singularity in team fights. And I think if we go into a post-mortem of the game and you look at